I'm Kathy Sewell, and we run Paradigm Consulting. So you're going to be seeing a lot of us over the weekend, and we're going to be leading you in different kinds of activities and taking you from one place to another, we hope. In other words, I'm going to move you from this room to another room and that kind of thing. But Mike and I are the ones that you need to come to if you need anything. And if you need us to help you with anything, finding out where something is, that's probably Mike and I. We also will be carrying the walkie-talkie, so you can kind of catch us if you don't know where we are. The other thing to let you know is that tonight we have some people here. We have a lot more that will be coming tomorrow. They'll be coming and going. So we are going to have kind of a movable audience. So I want you to be very flexible about this, knowing we're going to have people coming and going throughout the weekend. And yes, Chastity is on her way. Mike's really excited. He gets to pick her up in the airport in about a half hour, so he gets to leave. So we do have those Chastity still coming in, but we will have a lot more people again tomorrow. So we have about 70 people registered for the conference on and off, so you'll see that happening. As you'll see tonight, we have a thing called mentoring groups. We'll explain that after the first session. And so as soon as we have the first speaker. Now this conference, as you know, some of you know, it's sponsored by a lot of different folk that came together to work on this conference. And I'm going to introduce right now one of the primary conference organizers who's sponsored the program, and that's Sandy Hale from Pride, Executive Director from Pride.
Welcome. This is an historic moment in Montana. And although we might be few in number, I want you to know that this is a very, 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 very large number because it's the first group that's ever come to support an out public conference on gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered issues for youth. So I think we should all applaud ourselves for that. And as Kathy said, there'll be actually a groundswell tomorrow probably, because there's still people coming in from out of town to get here to this conference. I'd like to urge you, along with the other conference planners, to stay through the entirety of the weekend because we have a very special closing ceremony that will mean a lot to you, and it will mean more as you go through the weekend. And take advantage of the material that's back on those exhibitors' tables. There's very helpful stuff there from PFLAG, Pride, the Montana Human Rights Network, and the Mental Health Association of Montana. And 3 of those organizations back there actually help sponsor the conference, so their material is important. They do back gay and lesbian civil rights issues in Montana. What else? I think that's it. Just a little background. We've been planning this conference for over a year, believe it or not. We started actually here in Missoula at the United Church of Christ in August of 1995. And the group changed, the little planning group changed, but Mike was there for the first meeting and kind of turned our heads around, and we kind of rocketed into the 5th dimension from there and got PFLAG involved and Lambda groups from Bozeman and Missoula and Billings and other places, and had high school kids come from Helena and Great Falls, and parents and school teachers. And not all of those people can be here this weekend, unfortunately, but all of you are a product of that planning, so we're very grateful to have you here. And before we go on, I would like to know where everybody's from, like that row there. Where are you all from?
Powell, Wyoming.
Yay, wow, so welcome. And Billings, how many people from Billings?
One.
Yo, Bozeman? Helena? Great Falls? Missoula? Butte?
Yay!
Haver or the Highline? Are there?
Shelby.
Shelby, that's a highlight.
There you go.
Anyway, so, and as I said, tomorrow, make it a point to introduce yourselves to each other, because it's only through networking and support around this vast state that we're going to accomplish some of our goals. And as you know, we're sometimes far, far, far away from each other. Tonight we're going to be very, very close, though. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our first speaker, Donnie Waring. And I heard about Donnie a couple years ago. He was part of a conference down in Denver, the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. And then one of my contacts in the state health department sent me Donnie's resume and said, we should use this guy here in Montana sometime. So, well, here we go. And just a little bit about Donnie. Donnie's from Denver and has been a young gay activist for many years, if you can be a young gay activist for many years. Most recently, he works with AIDS Walk Colorado and has helped raise over $2.2 million for that organization. So he has quite the organizational skills. He's also served on as a staff member and writer for Out Front, which is Colorado's gay, lesbian, bisexual newspaper, and has also hosted and produced gay TV for a couple years, so he has many skills, and I welcome Donnie.
Sorry, little camera, so it's not going to come out. Ready? Smile. All right. Well, there, now I have something for my scratch. A study by the American Psychological Association was released in 1993, and it indicated that, I wonder if this is actually even on, I don't think it is. And it indicated that gay and lesbian youth were at risk of falling victim to harassment and hate crimes. It actually said that, it said that youth were even at risk of committing suicide in the school system if they didn't actually out themselves or discuss their sexuality. The study went on to say that if they didn't talk about their sexuality, they were at greater risk of committing suicide. If they did out themselves to fellow classmates or it became obvious that they might be a lesbian or gay person, the chances of harassment or physical abuse increased as well. Basically, our youth are facing a no-win situation today. According to a study by the American Psychological Association, the report, I apologize. Basically, our youth are facing a no-win situation. According to the study, lesbians and gay youth accelerate their chances of receiving harassment and or physical hate crimes if they come out and face even greater threats of suicide should they keep their emotions bottled up. According to the report, lesbian and gay youth chance of completing school unscathed seems dim. 40 to 76% of gays and lesbians on campus have been verbally harassed, 3 to 5% have been attacked physically, and 16 to 20% have been threatened by violence. This weekend, we're here to reach beyond fear and moving into a space where all of us are safe to express who we are on our terms, and I think it's a pretty special weekend. The diversity of the process of coming out is as diverse as the types of people that inhabit our planet. We have African American people and white people, there are Republicans and Democrats, and there are gays and lesbians. The diversity of the process of, we are going to participate in a practice of outing ourselves this weekend by actually sharing with other people different and important aspects of our lives. And before we go any further, I'd like to set down maybe a couple goals to keep in mind for the weekend. We're going to be talking about a lot of important issues and a lot of personal issues, and it'd be, I think, to our benefit if we just set some things out there and keep those on your mind for the weekend. I like it if we could respect each other for where we're at in our coming out process. Some of us are out to ourselves, which to me is the most powerful thing you can actually do. Some of us are out to our friends, many of us are out to family members, and some of us are even out to our coworkers or classmates. Some of us actually run the whole gamut of coming out, and I applaud that even more. Second, let's make it a common goal to actually listen to our peers during this weekend. We'll be participating in mentor workshops and having a chance to discuss some important issues. So let's actually respect where each of us is coming from and really make it a point to listen to what each of the people in the group have to say. Now, we don't have to necessarily agree with those people, and as a person of one of the groups, I might actually even say that my view is somewhat different. But as long as we can come together on that common ground and respect that we all have something to share and that by contributing we all actually grow from this experience, then I think we're in a really good place. Now with that said, I'd like to say that each of us definitely have our own coming out stories, and those stories I think are some of the most powerful tools that we have in our community. We have an opportunity to share ourselves with a lot of different people. Our stories are all unique, and I think it's through our diversity that helps make us better people as a community. But the sad thing is that we don't often share it, so I'm really excited about the opportunity to be able to stand before you today and share a little bit about my story. It goes a little bit like this. I was 17 and a half when I came out. I was in high school. It was the fall of my senior year. Growing up, I always had crushes on boys. I actually had a crush on Christopher Reeves when he was Superman. I thought he was very cute, and I remember dreaming and thinking, you know what, it would be great to live with Christopher Reeves. I wonder if he would like to, live with me too and everything. And then I found out he was married and that whole fantasy went to hell. So. But I never for a moment believed that it made me a bad person that I had attraction to the same sex, to members of the same sex. I never thought that I was wrong or that I was different or that I was a bad person until I went to high school in the year 1985. Middle school was pretty fun. I liked middle school. I was popular, if you can be popular in middle school, and I went with what was considered the cool crowd. All those people that I went to middle school with, though, the year that I went into 1985, into high school, something dramatically changed. I'm not sure what it was, but for some strange reason, all the people I grew up with didn't talk to me anymore. One of the people that I went to school with actually went on in high school to become homecoming everything. He was homecoming king, he was homecoming prince, he was homecoming everything. We were really good friends. His mom used to babysit me and take care of my brother and myself when we were growing up. We hung out a lot throughout the schooling system, including middle school. And in high school, I think he said hi to me maybe 4 times the entire 4 years I was at high school. For some reason, and I'm a little still foggy about this, sex and sexuality became a really big issue between my 8th grade year and my freshman year in high school. I remember being asked throughout my schooling experience whether or not I was gay, had I slept with women, was I a fag, all those questions we love to hear as lesbian and gay people in high schools. And the interrogation seemed to continue on. The first couple of years I really didn't enjoy myself. And I kept wondering to myself, why are these people wanting to know if I'm gay or not? You know what? I haven't had an experience with a woman. I haven't had an experience with a man. And yeah, I know that internally I was kind of thinking, I recognize that I have same-sex attraction. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But why are these people asking me this? I mean, am I carrying myself in a certain way? Am I doing something that's saying, hello, ask me if I'm a fag. Could you please ask me if I'm gay today because I'd really like it. It'd make my day better. I don't know what it was, and I still have some troubles with that. Thinking back in high school, though, what happened and what changed in the coming out process happened in my senior year. I was in Russian. I took Russian class. I needed to graduate. And in my class was a gentleman named R.C., and his brother Robbie was my grade. We were seniors together, and R.C. was a year younger than me. He was a junior. He was very cute, very nice. He wrestled, he played football. I thought he was kind of a cute guy. I always had a little bit of a crush on him. Well, I'm a little slow, and you'll find that out as the story progresses. In fact, some might say even prehistoric in how slow I was. R.C. began writing notes to me in Russian class. And you know what? I was thinking, do boys actually write other boys' notes in high school? But still wasn't getting a point. R.C.'s notes continued for a couple of weeks. In one class I came in, he actually gave me a little piece of candy. It was a Valentine's heart that you get on Valentine's Day. It's October, so I'm thinking, he got a deal, and he's trying to give me some candy. So I took it, and he said, read it. And I said, so I read it, and he said, read it out loud. So I read it out loud, and it said, kiss me. And he smiled. And I said, Now, I know you're thinking I'm really slow, because at this point I still really did not have a clue that the guy was flirting with me or was trying to pick me up or anything like that. One day our Russian class took a field trip to Tamara's Cafe. It's a Russian eatery. The family members came from Russia, and they made really good food. So we were there. R.C. wasn't there. I sat at a table of girls who knew R.C. Of course, the gay guy with the girls, that might have been it. So I was sitting there, and the topic of R.C.'s sexuality, for some reason, came up at the table. Certainly not prompted by me, but I was interested. Well, it comes out that R.C. was known as being bisexual. He had been known to date men and everything. Oh my God! A major awakening for me. This man is actually interested in other men. Wow! I think I get now the notes that I was getting. I certainly understand now. Kiss me on a little Valentine's candy heart that he gave to me. So I was really excited. Ran home, called him up, and I said, R.C., I just want to let you know that I think you're very attractive, and I would love to have a chance to get to know you further. Well, he declined. He said he was actually dating a woman at the time, and that he didn't, although he had had those experiences, he didn't consider himself as being gay. And that actually forced me to deal with some things. So I went to go see a high school guidance counselor. Her name is Miss Jones. Miss Jones actually taught peer counseling as well. R.C. was a part of the peer counseling class, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to discuss this little enigma R.C. And so I go to speak with Miss Jones. Miss Jones said, that R.C. has his own issues he's dealing with right now. So let's talk about you. What's going on with you? I said, I think I'm gay. and you know what? I think this is who I've been, and you know, I think this is kind of okay. You know, I feel good about this. So she smiled, and I think she was in a little bit of shock that I was going to come out to her at that moment. I think she was probably thinking, you know, how are grades? Is life good? Are you all the classes you want to take this year, Donnie? I actually came out. She was actually very nice. She asked me if I needed references to any support groups in Denver, and I actually declined. I said, you know, this weight has been lifted off me. It was just really nice to actually share it with somebody else. Don't remember seeing Ms. Jones much during the remainder of my senior year, but I do remember seeing her on graduation day. My parents were walking with me, and I moved through a line and turned in my cap and gown, and Ms. Jones was there. And she came up and she actually gave me a hug, and she was smiling and had a little tear in her eye and wished me the best in life and a great success. So, of course, you know, I broke down into tears and I started crying. And I think to this day, my parents still wonder what role this woman played in my life, you know? How important could this woman be that our son becomes an emotional wreck when he says bye to her? And I'll tell you what she meant to me. She meant everything to me. That woman allowed me an opportunity and a safe environment where I had a chance to share something personal about myself with somebody else. And I thank God every day that that woman was not one of the counselors that turned around and decided that she needed to have a personal chat with my parents or violated my personal rights and everything as an individual, that she respected me. She offered me services and support, and while I didn't take it, she listened to what I had to say, didn't judge me, and didn't make me feel like I was less than as a human being. In fact, I think she actually respected me for some of the decisions I made. It's my belief that if we try to suppress what's natural in ourselves, that actually comes out in a certain way. For example, when I wasn't willing to admit to anyone else that I was gay, when I told them, no, you know, I slept with women, lie, you know, all these other things. When I decided that I wasn't going to share with other people that I was gay, or that I had attraction to members of the same sex, while being asked by these people, I think by suppressing it, it came out in other ways. I'm not sure how people picked up on it, but I think that the universe kind of kicked me in the butt and was teaching me a lesson. See, I believe that the universe is here to support us, and that the universe supporting me said, you know what, Donnie Lorraine, you're being asked some questions and you're choosing to ignore those questions. You're being asked, and although not the best words, fag, I don't think is one of the best words to use, you're being asked if you're gay. You're being asked if you might have same-sex attractions. And instead of dealing with this issue, you're pushing it aside. And I think that the universe said, you know, push it down all you want, but I'm going to keep the questions continuing until you decide to face up and realize this. And I'm really glad I did. Because if I didn't openly admit to myself that I was gay, I don't think that I'd be in a position to do what I did now. And I know that the universe has wholly supported me on the rest of the path that I've taken up to this point. The spectrum of sexuality or coming out is kind of diverse. I think there's 4 different areas on what it could be. And I think we're all at different stages. And earlier today, I'm one of the mentors for this weekend, and we had a discussion. And in the discussion, it came out that the coming out process is continual, that we're always on this track of having to come out to somebody new and share our experiences with somebody new. Coming out to self, I think, is one of the most important things. And this thing called homophobia has caused a great deal of us to deal with self-loathing. And I want to share with you some meditation notes that Michelangelo Signorelli wrote in his book, Outing Yourself. It's how to come out as lesbian or gay to your family, friends, and coworkers. But in here, he has some really interesting notes on the coming out process or self-loathing. It's a whole chapter on it. And he deals with some interesting things. He said that self-loathing equals self-destruction, and that self-respect equals self-enrichment. This is my favorite. Homosexuality, as the American Psychiatric Association declared in 1973, is not a disease. Homophobia is a disease, like alcoholism or drug abuse. Homophobia, which is contagious, has been passed down to me. The self-loathing I'm experiencing is merely a symptom of the disease of homophobia. I'm not alone. All gay people experience self-loathing. Self-loathing is so insidious that it affects all of my thinking about homosexuality and the gay community. All of the negative feelings I have toward gay people in general, or certain types of gay people, are a product of my own self-loathing. And I will try every day of my life to deprogram myself to love the gay man that I am and replace my self-loathing with self-respect. Upon returning to Denver from an 8-month stay in San Diego in August of 1992, I quickly sought and was employed as a staff writer for Outfront, actually as a receptionist for Outfront, Colorado's leading lesbian and gay publication. The gentleman who hired me was none other than the founder of the paper, Phil Price. I remember thinking back that Phil appeared impressed with my resume. I had been a in DECA, which is a marketing club, kind of like future business leaders. I was state president there. I was in the Boy Scouts of America, and had a little bit of a leadership background. Phil encouraged me during the interview to keep in mind that if I ever felt comfortable doing so, I could pursue writing with a publication. After my return from the March on Washington, in 1993, I was so moved. I wrote a brief review of my experiences at the March on Washington and being among more than 750,000 lesbians, gays, bisexual, and transgender people. This is a bit scary for me. It was the first time I'd ever written it, and it was certainly a career choice that I never thought would even become possible to me. The review went really well, so I decided to try another. Well, at the March on Washington, I was impressed by an 18-year-old who spoke on the main stage. His name is Troy Bittencourt. He shared his story with more than 750,000 people in attendance on the main stage at the March on Washington. He was 18 years old at the time. I was motivated and inspired by this young man. I had a chance to see him actually backstage and saw and conducted an interview with him. I want to share his story with our readers. I actually want to know personally more about his story for myself. The interview was conducted and the story went to press. My story on 18-year-old Troy Bittencourt hit the streets. Phil Price wasn't feeling well at the time. In fact, he hadn't been at the paper the entire time. And largely for those reasons, he didn't read that edition of Out Front, and I could imagine why. I think it would be emotionally hard to read a paper that you had founded, that had been going on for 17 years, that you had not been involved with. And a week and a half later or two, Phil Price passed away. Interestingly, this gentleman who casually encouraged me to pursue writing, if I felt comfortable doing so, never read a word of what I had to write. Phil Price helped me, probably without ever knowing it, to discover talent I never knew I possessed. And because of AIDS, he never read a word, and he never knew that he helped me. I am grateful to have been able to serve at Out Front for several years. They encouraged me to interview anyone that I wanted to. And actually, I think they kind of thought, what the hell? Call Melissa Etheridge and see if you can get an interview. What the hell? Call Elizabeth Taylor and see if you can set something up. So I did, and I interviewed a lot of people that I want to, and they were all people that were important to me. And what I'd like to do is just share a few of my favorites. It's just a couple clips from some of my favorite people that I had a chance to interview over the years at Out Front. They're motivational to me for a lot of different reasons, not necessarily because they're lesbian or because they're gay. Although I have to mention that I wouldn't know anything about these people if they actually hadn't come out of the closet. They would never have been a person that I would have thought to look up to. They would never have had the importance or impact that they've had in my life. Obviously, I'm going to tell you about Troy Bittencourt. He is 17 years old. On June 28th, 1992, Troy was busy taking a shower and getting ready to leave the house. While his parents were going through a routine that had become common in the house, his parents were fighting. They were going through divorce. There was alcoholism in the family. Troy had been the recipient of quite a bit of media attention from his efforts as president of BAGLY, the Boston Alliance for Gay and Lesbian Youth, which had recently won the Boston Peace Award, given to only 3 organizations in the state of Colorado each year. His picture had been on the front page of the Boston Globe. So, this was pretty much the last straw for this superstitious Catholic Portuguese family. His mother, who was dealing with a lot of different issues at the time, pulled a knife on him and called him a fag, and started harassing him about spending time with gays in the city. Troy went and locked himself in the bathroom. Upon arriving, the police spoke with Troy's mother, who was quick to explain that her son was gay and spent much of his time in Boston with the other gays. When the officer knocked on his door, Troy opened it, only to be bombarded with questions and harassment regarding his homosexuality. Such as, this officer actually said this, he said, if my son were gay, I'd kick him out of the house too, which was total neglect for the domestic partnership dispute, which he was called there to help out. Troy was actually escorted out of the house. He was asked to leave the house. The police officer followed him down the block to make sure that he actually left the neighborhood. Now, what's interesting about this story is that Troy was not given the common courtesy of support from different social services institutions because the word gay or lesbian wasn't put into their code of ethics or what they dealt with, what they thought was an issue. So because he was gay, regardless of the fact that he was under 18, they couldn't help him. I'm sorry, we can't help you because you're kicked out for being gay. We can't help you because your parents say you're gay. And we can't, I'm sorry, and I know that's sad, I know you're on the streets, but we can't do anything for you. I can imagine that Troy pretty quickly found out who his friends were. I think it would be difficult to try and find housing when you're kicked out of your house. Troy did succeed, and he went on, and he sued the city of Boston, which now has changed their ordinances to include gay and lesbian in that. He also was a recipient of the Human Rights Campaign Power of One Award, and Troy Bancourt, still to this day, is one of my personal heroes. Prior to coming out, Katie Lang discussed the issue with a longtime friend, Melissa Etheridge, who gave her some really good advice, and then a couple months later decided to follow her own advice. In fact, when Etheridge appeared at the Triangle Ball with girlfriend and film director Julie Cypher, who is on the cover of Newsweek right now because they're having a baby, which is great.
We're on 2020 tonight, we're missing it.
Oh,
We're on 2020 tonight.
they wore matching thumb rings to show that their union and solidarity for each other. Etheridge said to me in an interview, "I'm watching Hawaii politics right now, and I'll tell you what, if it gets to the point where they legalize gay marriage, I'll be the first in line. I'm totally going to do that. I don't see any reason why not. It's not a religious thing, it's a society structure thing," she continued. "It's the benefits one gets. It's the ceremony in which I would like to partake." Etheridge and Cypher consider themselves actually married at this point. But Etheridge states that when I had to spend time and extra money just to make sure that something happened, that I could visit her in the hospital, or that she could visit me, and regarding health benefits, she's living with me. She lived with me. We lived together for years, and they don't recognize her as my partner. It's those legal things that it would solve if they became married. I love Melissa Etheridge, not only for her music. I saw her in 1992 at the AIDS Dance-a-thon. It was the first time I'd ever seen her. I'd never heard of her music before. I listened to her, and I was so moved that this woman who had this great voice was laying her talents for an AIDS fundraiser. And later I had a chance to find out who this person was. And I had an opportunity to talk to her, and I actually had a chance to meet her. And by far one of the most inspiring people I've ever met. Not inspiring only for her music, but because she's an out person. She decided to go public with something that she didn't have to go public with. She's changed dramatically the face of how society as a whole views us as lesbians and gays. John Murray from MTV wrote that he remembers the day when he opened the letter from Pedro Zamora, and he looked at the picture, first of all, which he said he's gorgeous. He said, "Then I started reading a letter about this guy who came over in the Mariel boat from Cuba, and how he had to leave 2 brothers behind at the last minute because they were at the age of entering the military, and how he settled into a Cuban community in Miami, and how his mother died of cancer, and how he realized after she died that he had been having feelings since he was 14 or maybe 15 for marriage to the same sex, and that he had to do something about that." Murray also read that Pedro Zamora, when he was 17 and an honorable student at high school, tested positive for HIV as he was donating blood for one of the local causes. Quote, "I thought it was a natural progression of the work I was doing," said Pedro Zamora. "I was already doing a lot of AIDS education over the country and a lot of media work. This is just a natural progression of the work I was doing." In addition to bringing the topic of HIV and AIDS to the millions of people who watched MTV's The Real World, he also brought to the show its first love story. John Murray said that we've been hoping at some point that we'd really get a chance to profile a very loving story. And he said the fact that it happened to be between 2 men, and one happened to be black, and one happened to be Latino, was fine with us. Pedro said that the show had aired, and after the show aired, several people made comments about him and came up and decided to talk to him. They told him that it was inspiring. Young people would come and tell him it was inspiring and moving to them that as an HIV-positive person, he was sharing his life story with millions of people. And that as a gay man, he was sharing his love and romance and marriage with millions of people. Pedro said that it was worth every moment and every pain in the ass to have that happen. And to this day, Pedro Zamora is one of my very favorite people. Amanda Burst from Married with Children said, "I still feel like we're such a long ways in terms of battling our fear of the religious right and the very organized conservative elements that would like to oppress us. We sort of have a call, if you will, to be active. To not just come out, but once you're out, to keep the presence alive and encourage others who haven't taken the step to do so." Burst respects individuals like Martina Navratilova and other friends that she's met. She was recently appointed to the board of directors at Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Community Center. Actually, she just recently finished her term there of 2 years. She said that she had an opportunity to meet a lot of inspirational people. People who, although not as visible as she was, were people that were inspirational to her nonetheless. They were people who were out and who were doing work and who were continuing to strive and make efforts for our community. And they were motivational people to her, and she's a motivational person to me. I kind of was debating on whether I would share this or not tonight, but this person is one of the most inspirational people I've ever had a chance to read about. I will certainly never have a chance to meet him, and that's unfortunate. I would have liked to. He's actually in a book that's in the back of the room. It's called Uncommon Heroes. It was put together by a man named Philip Sherman, and it profiles outstanding lesbians and gays. And it might be some people that you recognize, like David Geffen, record mogul David Geffen, who's worth more than $1 billion, is recognized in this book. Melissa Etheridge is in this book, Katie Lang, Urvashi Vad, and then of course a whole slew of people whose names really aren't familiar to me. I was flipping through the book actually, and I came to this page, and I stopped, and I'll be honest, I stopped because the guy was cute, and I thought, oh, he's kind of cute, I want to read about his story, I want to know what's happening in his life. He's wearing this little cowboy hat, and he's chapped, and he's tight little blue jeans, and he's a very attractive man. This piece is written by John R. Schlegel, and I'd like to read it to you. It's from the book Uncommon Heroes, and it's about Frank Andrade, who is my all-time personal favorite hero. It took him 3 years of hard work, but he did it. Frank Andrade, a gymnast and swimmer, was accustomed to physical challenges. But when he came home from seeing his first gay rodeo in Phoenix, Arizona in 1987, he knew this was another challenge that he'd have to conquer. He went to a ranch in Norco, California to get some experience. Determination and discipline would take him just where he wanted to go, he believed, and he didn't let anything get in his way, even when he tested HIV positive in 1990. Andrade won his bull riding contest in Buckle in San Diego. It was much of a surprise to anyone who knew him. Yet Andrade wasn't a bull rider. He went on to Pomona College hoping to become a writer. He said, "I want to write cognitely about subjects that need to be addressed," he wrote in his application. Healthcare for everyone, instilling young children with a sense of fiscal, environmental, and ethical responsibility, affordable housing, and most importantly, teaching ourselves and young citizens to see people as individuals, regardless of ethnicity, religion, preference of mate, physical challenge, or any other trait that doesn't hurt others, and adds to the variety of our species. Less than a year before his death in 1992, and while still a college student, Andrade joined Being Alive, Speakers Bureau in Los Angeles, and was soon a leader of the group. He talked to any organization that he could address, or for anyone who would listen to him. He told his stories about being an HIV positive person, abandonment by family members, social stigmatization, and healthcare difficulties. At one point, the executive director, Michael Dwiggins of Being Alive, asked Andrade if he would speak at a group that had specifically asked for somebody visibly ill, so that people would learn not to fear the physical signs of the disease. At the time, Andrade had Kaposi sarcoma lesions on his face. He put aside his personal reservations and agreed to do it. It's typical of his bravery, it says. He evoked a tremendous support response from the group that day. No one thought he was a victim. And no matter how much life buckled in the room, Andrade hung on until the last bell rang. You know, being out and gay, we have such a wealth of stories and ideas that we can share. We are some of the most beautiful and caring people out there, and I am not going to let anyone or any government body tell me otherwise. I have a right to live free of this chain that's called homophobia. I have a right to live proudly as a gay man in the United States of America, and I, too, will hold on until the last bell rings. Thanks very much for allowing me to speak and for allowing me to stumble through some of this, and I hope you have a very nice week, and I'll see you throughout the weekend. Thank you.